Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Star Technology. Glad to see you again. Last video in the series ended off after ore proc and passive titanium were set up, so we're ready for extreme voltage. Today, we're just starting off with a building project, just so we have a floor to put all of our mystical agriculture machines on. We ended up going with a blue theme for this building, and I think we're also going to use it for Petrochem later on today, and then probably research and assembly lines later on down the road in LUV or ZPM. Right now on this floor, we're just putting down some essence replicators so we have some inferium essence being generated at least, but we'll have to return to MA later because my main task right now is to make a beeline for insane voltage. In order to get there, we're going to need petrochemistry and RTM alloy coils on our EBFs in order to cook the ingots we need, which will require us to get platinum lines set up. Quite the doozy admittedly, but I'm ready to get into it. In some ways, getting Platline complete is essentially a rite of passage for Star Technology players, as it's the first somewhat complicated chemical line that you have to complete. It does require quite a few machines, but the ultimate goal when you're setting up Platline is to make sure all of your chemicals loop perfectly, with your ores going in and your platinum group metals coming out. It might be intimidating if you're new, it definitely was to me my first time, but I'll walk you through it and hopefully show you that Platline isn't really as scary as it looks. Like I said, platinum line starts with ore. It requires the purified state of one of these ores, but I recommend using sheldonite like I do because it gives us 4 platinum group sludge instead of 2 like the rest of these ores. Before you set up Platline, make sure you have a good stream of sheldonite coming through, and also make sure that you have a large amount of nitric and hydrochloric acid available because we'll need it to get this chain going. As for machines, you may have noticed you'll need a lot of LCRs, but additionally, you'll need a couple centrifuges, a mixer, 1 or 2 electrolyzers, and some single block distilleries or a distillation tower. This is the list of machines I use for Platinum Line this run, but tweak these numbers to your preferences by all means. Some of these recipes on the LCRs will require IV tier overclocking, which we can achieve with 2 EV energy hatches. If you're confused on how to get platinum to craft these before Platline is done, you can just electrolyze sheldonite for it. Despite the name, we don't need Platline for platinum necessarily, it's more needed for the other platinum group metals we can extract if that wasn't clear. After we get some machines made, it's time to tackle the actual line. Charts seem to help for some people, so if that's your style, here's a flowchart made by Toby Hanna. The numbers aren't super clean for the looping, and I think some of the decimals towards the bottom are maybe a bit off, but don't worry about that too much because the important part is that everything here will loop. Starting up here with the ore and nitric acid, we react them in an LCR for platinum group sludge and sulfuric nickel solution. You can electrolyze the solution to recycle some sulfuric acid and oxygen, plus get some byproduct nickel that it produces. To further process this platinum sludge though, we'll need our mixer combining nitric acid and hydrochloric acid for aqua regia, which is the real-life mixture they use to dissolve noble metals like platinum. To continue the processing, we centrifuge the platinum group sludge and aqua regia together, and from here, it will take a couple different paths because of the outputs that come from this, but stay with me. If you want, you can centrifuge the platinum sludge residue from this for silicon dioxide and gold, though most people tend to avoid this one, so it's up to you, but it doesn't give anything super important like these other 4 outputs, so you can ignore it. The simplest one of these other 4 outputs to break down is the raw platinum powder because all we need to do with it is electrolyze it for the final product platinum and chlorine that can be looped back around to hydrochloric acid for further processing. The raw palladium dust here is also pretty simple, just needing to be reacted with hydrochloric acid in an LCR for palladium and ammonium chloride. The ammonium chloride is just another looping chemical, so we just electrolyze that too for hydrochloric acid and ammonia to feed them back into the process. With that part done, it's time to break down the slightly more complicated rarest metal mixture and inert metal mixtures, so we can extract the remaining 4 platinum group metals from them. To process inert metal mixture, we need to start by reacting it with sulfuric acid for ruthenium tetroxide, rhodium sulfate, and hydrogen that also gets looped. Obviously though, we still need to process these other two outputs further to get final products. So next, grab a stack or two of carbon, because this step requires us to react it with that ruthenium tetroxide for ruthenium and carbon dioxide, yet another output that gets electrolyzed so we can reuse the carbon and oxygen from it. Now, for that rhodium sulfate, all we need to do with it is electrolyze it for rhodium, oxygen, and sulfur trioxide, which, you guessed it, loops back around for us. The sulfur trioxide here is kind of on its own, but you can just put this into a single block reactor with an infinite water cover to turn this back into sulfuric acid for you. Now that those are broken down, let's backtrack to the centrifuge outputs, because all we have left to process is the rarest metal mixture now. To start off with this one, we react it together with hydrochloric acid and another LCR for iridium metal residue, acidic osmium solution, and hydrogen for more looping shenanigans. The first of these outputs, iridium metal residue, will get centrifuged by itself next for iridium chloride and more of that negligible platinum sludge residue. From here, we just react the iridium chloride with hydrogen for the final product iridium, and some hydrochloric acid for more glorious looping. If you're getting tired of hearing me say loop, I'm sorry, I know, I'm tired of it too, but all we have left now is that acidic osmium solution. It has a couple steps of its own, but we start by distilling it down into osmium tetroxide and hydrochloric acid. The last step for this now is to react the osmium tetroxide with hydrogen for osmium. The water from these steps is the last thing we need to loop by electrolyzing it. Now, with LCRs to make hydrochloric acid and nitric acid, we have the line complete. Just make sure that the nitric acid is being made on circuit 24 with oxygen and ammonia for proper looping. Like all passive subnets, we'll need to add a drive with storage cells on it, then we finish it off by showing our final products platinum, palladium, rhodium, ruthenium, iridium, osmium, and nickel back to our mainnet. Probably go around and make sure that everything is running smoothly before you call it done, because this is a pretty long line and it's kinda easy to brick them, especially if it's your first time around. For those of you that are more observant, you may have noticed something a bit different about my Platline subnet. I decided to be a bit experimental this time around and make this a requester subnet, but it isn't really a beginner level design, so I don't really recommend it for other people. If you don't know what a requester subnet is, it's basically the same thing as a passive subnet as far as ores going in and dusts coming out, but instead of routing each individual item and fluid to the right input, you just set patterns for the necessary steps, then add requesters and crafting CPUs so you can let it do its thing. The main upside to using a requester subnet is that it allows you to assign all recipes in the line for a certain machine to one machine or divide it over a couple machines without recipe conflicts. The unfortunate downside, and the real reason I don't recommend it, is that with a line this complicated, there's a lot of factors that can go wrong, so it takes quite a bit of exhaustive troubleshooting to make sure it works properly. Requester subnets are pretty good for sterile growth medium or even mystical agriculture, but I'm just doing Platline on a normal passive subnet next time around. After getting Platline done, I very much did not want to use my brain for a bit, so I went through the process of making all the different mystical agriculture seeds I possibly could, because all you really have to do is use 3 different machines and wait a while. With that task completed though, we're just going to leave most of these seeds to the side for now, because our main goal at the moment is to get ender air distillation set up passively. To get our first bit of radon for the mystical agriculture single blocks for this, Scarlet ended up doing the annoying but required end agglomeratio recipe to get us started. You only need to do the distillation tower recipe once to start this process on mystical agriculture, but it is a full 200 buckets, so it does take a minute to get. Once you get that first bit of radon though, you'll at least need to make an EV essence burner so you can make more ender air. After you get a greenhouse growing air essence, just burn it in an essence burner on circuit 3 to start producing it. I'm just using interfaces with a pump or conveyor covers to move items and fluids in and out of our machines here. In order to distill this air into its different outputs, we need it in liquid form, so the next step here is to build some extra freezers to cool it into liquid ender air. I usually just store the liquid air in a super tank, but after this we can finally send it to a couple distillation towers to finish processing it. This will produce quite a bit more than just radon, like nitrogen dioxide and helium, but it's not really the best source for helium since monazite extraction exists as a method for that. Moving on from air distillation now, my next big goal for this episode is to get us the IV energy hatch. We already have most of what we need for this as far as materials, so we just need to set patterns, but in order to cut these phosphorus wafers into high power IC chips, we're going to need an IV cutter. This should be simple enough, but because of one single ingredient for these covers, we have quite a bit to do before we can actually craft those energy hatches. The laminated glass for the cutter will require us to make a whole petrochemistry setup, so I hope you like distillation towers because they're about to become your best friend here. There's honestly 1.5 million ways to do petrochem, so you can use this chart to make your own decision on what to drill and refine if you want, but I'll walk you through what I do for petrochemicals if you want to do the same distillation process that I do for it. So, to start, petrochemicals have two main sources, drilling and pyrolysis ovens, and each one has quite a few different resources they produce. But we're going to come back to pyrolysis in a second so we can focus on drilling. To find out what oil a chunk has to offer, just fly around with a prospector on fluid mode, and I recommend looking for heavy oil with this, then planting 1 or 2 drills on it. Ender tanks are a good way to transfer the fluid from drilling, but once it's set up, the next step is to distill the heavy oil into its 4 outputs. After it's distilled, we're left with these sulfuric outputs, so now we need to send all of these into LCRs with hydrogen for further processing. The hydrogen sulfide from this needs electrolyzed for our hydrogen back, but the next step with these products is to steam crack all of them except for the refinery gas, which we'll just leave out of this step. You can use fluid heaters for the steam to do this, but I'm honestly just using a lapidary boiler with some augments since it's phenomenally more power efficient for steam. With the crack fuels in hand, all we have to do is finish the drilling part of Petrochem to distill the naphtha, refinery gas, and heavy fuel for final products. Going back to the pyrolysis oven, all we have to do with these is produce wood gas, wood tar, wood vinegar, and coal tar, then distill those into their final products. This will pretty much cover all the weird specific chemicals we'll need from Petrochem later. To recap these last steps for everything though, heavy oil is just drill, distill, react with hydrogen, crack all but refinery gas, then distill. And for pyrolysis, you just distill it straight out of the ovens and you're good. With this all complete, we're ready to move on towards that IV energy hatch now. After we get it, we'll have to wrap things up for today, but it will allow us to get better dynamo hatches on our turbines between episodes, and then next episode we'll be able to set up alloy blast smelters, assembly lines, and other more advanced multi-blocks. Last thing we need for the hatches is an LCR in our clean room and a few more auto crafting patterns, so nothing too complicated. I just kinda crammed this LCR where I could for now, since I don't feel like rearranging this clean room quite yet. That's the last thing we needed though, so I should be able to order IV energy hatches now. There really wasn't a whole lot for EV, and we went into a bit of IV today, but this is the milestone I wanted to get to for this video, so this is where I ended off since the energy hatch came through without any issues. If you have any questions about today's projects, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll get around to it, but thanks for watching another one to the end, and I can't wait to see you again on the next one. Ciao!